Alright folks, this is just an information video. If you've got a Passat B5, this is a 5, not a 5.5, but probably the same deal, with wet floors. There's a few things. There's a common thing there front, there's a air filter housing in the front there for the cabin fan, and that leaks. This one's sorted, I did that a while ago. But we're still getting wet floors. I'm getting it on behind the driver, so the passenger right hand side, very wet floor. The driver's floor is a little wet sometimes, and the other two seem okay. So I've had a look at the weather seals. They look really good actually. I'll show you. So the weather strips are nice and supple and in the right position. The door presses against them in every part of the location, pushes against them. What I have noticed when I open the door though is sometimes I see water here on top of the weather seal, and that sort of made me think, maybe it's not the weather seals because it's actually holding the water in, or it could be the weather seals up high and it's kind of dripping down the inside of the seal. And sitting here, and the same on the rear as well. So here's the thing to do: get yourself a watering can like this and pour water over the door so you can see the door's wet. Like I've already been doing it. So I'll show you on the front door. Just shove it over there like this and let it run down the side of the door. Now obviously there should be no water inside of the door, so you can see there's tons of water pouring off the outside of the door there. But after some time doing that, I noticed down here, I got some water over there, so ignore that bit. But here, look, it is dripping. So that is from underneath the trim. It's coming out from under the trim. It's dripping down there, and you can see that this is why it would sit on top of the weather seal here. It's coming from inside of the weather seal. It's still dripping away, look. And the situation is the same on the rear door. Again, plenty of water coming out onto the floor. You can see here where I pour it, there's quite a bit goes into the door, but that shouldn't really be a problem. You see there's a patch of the strip remaining completely dry there as the water just goes inside the door. But that shouldn't be a problem. It should still run outside. And it should run through these drain holes, which it's doing. Look, drain hole here, which is outside of the weather strip, and that's fine. But as you can see, there's been a lot of water coming out from here. Inside the weather strip. So we got problems inside. So I'm going to take the door cards off and get into that. Prise the door handle cover off and then undo the large machine screws, which have a Phillips head. And those are the only thing really holding the door on firmly. The rest of it is then clips. So you can pull those off and then lift the door card up to get it off the top frame of the door. You've then got the lock to disconnect and the handle release. Now you can see the water running down the frame, look, and down the bottom. So it is coming between the interior door structure and the main red door. So I'm unsure if it's just the seal between this galvanised piece and the painted red. It could just be that seal because it's all seeping out down there, as you saw in the video. Or it could be something further inside. So let's get this off next. Now in theory this comes off nice and easily, except for the fact there's a couple of cables going through it, electrical and mechanical. And the window is being held up by this interior plate, this galvanised steel plate. So that does make it very awkward, you'll see in a minute. So getting the door in a frame off is quite difficult because it was stuck quite well at the top here, where it doesn't need to be. But down here where it was leaking, it was nice and easy. So it does come off, and with the window half down there's quite a lot of room to get in and do stuff. But as you can see, this is what I've been struggling with off camera now. There's an arrangement there where the window just drops in and clicks into those two plastic sides which are clamping it, and it's rather easier to get this one off. You can sort of do it with your finger, look, and the window will lift out. But there's one on the other side as well. The more you pull this one out, the tighter that one gets. And of course levering against that with metal is a bad idea because the window might smash. So I've got a piece of wood here which is quite good at getting into that one and pulling that off, look. And I could just pull the window up, but the back one, very much more difficult to get to. So I've got to get your hand around the back of here, and I've got no strength to pull that off now. So yeah, everyone can get this far in about 10 minutes. This is the difficult part. I just want to get this off so I can clean this bad sealing stuff off the back of here, look, and put some silicone on, especially down the bottom, and then put it back together, and that'll be it. I think that'll stop the leak. But here I am wrestling with this bloody thing. So having said don't use metal, what I've done here is use metal, and I've got away with it, but don't use metal. And then on the inside I've used a piece of wood, and all the time I've got an upward pressure on it, and eventually it took me a long time this, you'll just see in the end of the process, it finally popped out. There we go. Oh, I think I've done it. Yes. So the rest now is disconnecting these mechanical cables, the door release and the lock, and then the electrical loom. You'll see here there's quite a few pieces of loom I've got to disconnect. Little clips that hold it on, and then the major connections, and I can feed that. Oh no, it's already on the outside of the door, sorry, so that's it. And once it's disconnected, off it comes, and then you pull the door card forwards to get it off the lock. There we get this off. Oh my god, what a struggle that was. And here we are, the problem. This seal is hard and almost non-existent. Here it's nice and supple and sticky, but I assume it's the water that's probably damaged it. So the water's going to pool in there, and there's a little drain hole there and there's a little drain hole there. But still there'll be some pooling in there. And I assume that's why it's failed. So I'm going to scrape that out, give it a good bead of silicone, and stick it all back together. So this is a sticky back sponge essentially when it was new. So the sponge has just become very hard. It's actually still stuck to the galvanised plate quite well, but the sponge is not then sealing against the door. So all that needs scraping off. I've only really done the bottom 3/4 of the seal. The top's fine, plus there's no water coming through anyway. Clean up the seal. So the window was about there when I took it out and got it to about there. So if you take the window up to about here and then rock it that way, bring it down at the back, it lodges in. But the window regulator should come in about here when I put the door card back in. Therefore I can just put the window in as a separate job later. So the next thing is silicone sealer in there, being careful not to get any in that drain hole because that's where I want the water to go, that way. And then slide it back on. So I put a bead of silicone on, I put it on the door and on the inner door galvanised plate, just double belt and braces job, and I even squirted some more on afterwards. To make sure it was sealed. Of course the difficulty with this is it's going to be hard to get that off in the future if you get like a motor regulator problem or something like that. So be aware you are gluing the thing on there and it's going to be a pain to get it off. But you'll have no more leaks. Something I overlooked is that hole, you can see it. There's a hole right above the gun now. It might have been a passage for the loom to go in or out or something like that. These have got to be sealed. All these holes have got to be sealed because I actually had to come back to this job later and I had to seal those up as the door was still leaking. So I should be able to pop the window in now. Should click in. Beautiful. And then fitting is the reversal of disassembly, as they say in the Haynes manual. Now I mess this up. I always do jobs twice because there's inevitably something I forgot on the inside, so I've got to pull it off again, and man, it's a faff. So honestly, learn from my mistake. Just write it down as you do it. So next I'm working on the front left. It's much the same. Pull the door card off, pull the bolts out, pull it off where it seals best at the top. It's quite hard to get it off. There's a connector here which goes to the central locking, so you've got to reach down under there and pull that out, which is quite awkward. But once you have, it's just one of those, so although it's hard to get to, if you can push, I think it sits like that, if you can push that thing while pulling it onto the connector, push that to release and then get it down, that's obviously the technique. They work very well even though they've been there for years. Still very effective, so not too bad once you know how to do it. And the beauty of this, it hasn't got that same arrangement as the back windows where you've got to release that clip to get the window out. This one has bolts, so you just loosen them and they pinch on the window in 2 locations. Look, so get the window to around about there, around about there I think, just a couple of inches down, and then these are exposed behind these plastic covers which look like this. So pop the covers, loosen those bolts, and then you can pull the window up, and I've wedged mine up with a piece of wood, look, so the door card will then, well, this main door structure will come out at the top and then up. So far the difference is on the driver's side, which is the right side in my UK car. It's got these fancy poppy things instead of ones you've got to wedge out, which is weird. But the gotchas, there's 2 screws on here, which are Torx T27 or something. Not just pull the door card off, but you've got to unscrew those. And around here, once you've got this switch gear off, there's 3 screws, one there, one there, and one there. So I was yanking away for a while before I realised there's a 3rd one there. Otherwise, it's so far so good, about the same. I'll get the rest of it off. Driver's door's done. Last thing, word of warning, this thing, fiddling around trying to get it through the steel plate and then through this, it's easy to get it off the lock mechanism, and if you do, nightmare to get it back on. nightmare. I got so cross with it. I ended up taking these bolts off and letting this thing dangle around. I was able to get the thing back on then. Nice little repair. If all this is broken, all the structure in it is broken on mine, so stick a cable tie in there, shove it around. It's quite strong enough. Back together, all working. Folks, if it's been helpful, leave us a comment. Much appreciated. Good luck.